Before I tell you what happened, let me ask, have you ever been judged by what you wore, as if your value could be measured by fabric and price tags? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. And by the end of this story, you'll see why you should never laugh at someone who looks ordinary, because appearances can change, but power always shows itself. It was a charity gala, one of those glittering nights where people wore designer gowns and sipped champagne like it was water. I couldn't afford new clothes, not after months of barely keeping my head above water. So I wore my old navy dress. It was simple, a little faded, but clean and neat. I told myself no one would care. But I was wrong. The moment I stepped in, I felt eyes scanning me. Then I heard it, the cruel laugh from across the room. It was Victoria, my former coworker, now married into money. She looked me up and down, her sequin gown sparkling under the lights. "Darling," she said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, "what a vintage choice. Did you pull it straight from a thrift store?" The laughter that followed stung worse than a slap. My cheeks burned. For a moment, I wanted to vanish into the shadows. But little did Victoria know, I wasn't alone, because walking in right behind me was him, the CEO. And when he saw me, he didn't laugh. He smiled. If someone mocked you for how you looked in front of everyone, would you fire back on the spot or stay quiet and wait for the perfect moment to put them in their place? Comment below. I want to hear what you do. The laughter around me hadn't even died down when the room suddenly hushed. Heads turned toward the doors, heels clicking softly against the marble floor. And there he was, Jonathan Hale, the CEO himself, the kind of man people whispered about but rarely got close to. Tall, composed, every inch of him carrying the quiet weight of authority. And then he walked straight toward me. Victoria's smirk froze on her lips. Guests straightened in their chairs. A waiter nearly tripped as he tried to clear glasses out of the way. "Claire," Jonathan said warmly, his voice carrying across the hall, "I'm glad you came." The entire ballroom turned. Whispers rippled like fire. She knows him? The CEO knows her. He didn't stop there. He took my hand, my trembling hand in that old navy dress, and tucked it into the crook of his arm, as if it belonged there. "You'll sit with me tonight," he said simply. The same people who'd laughed seconds earlier now stared, wide-eyed and silent. Victoria's face had gone pale, her sequin glass tilted in her hand, forgotten. And just like that, my old dress wasn't the punchline anymore. It was the headline. Dinner was served, but no one was paying attention to the food. The only thing anyone watched was the CEO and me. Jonathan tapped his glass, the clear ring echoing through the ballroom. The chatter fell away into silence. "I want to make a toast," he said, rising to his feet. His eyes scanned the room briefly, but then settled directly on me. To strength, to loyalty, and to the people who show up even when it's not easy. The guests clapped politely, though most still seemed stunned. Then Jonathan reached for my hand again, lifting it ever so slightly. "To Claire, the woman who reminded me tonight that value isn't in appearances, but in character. A lesson more of us should remember." Gasps, murmurs, heads turned toward me, this time not in ridicule, but in reluctant respect. Across the table, Victoria forced a laugh, her voice brittle. She said, "Oh, how inspiring!" She raised her glass as if to join in, but her trembling hand betrayed her. She tried to lean in toward Jonathan to reclaim the spotlight. "Of course, appearances do matter sometimes, don't they?" Jonathan's gaze cut through her words like a blade. The laughter that broke out then wasn't mocking me, it was mocking her. Victoria's cheeks burned crimson. She sank back into her seat, the sequins on her dress suddenly looking cheap under the weight of humiliation. The string quartet struck up a soft waltz, and couples began drifting onto the floor. I was still seated, trying to steady my breath after the toast, when Jonathan extended his hand toward me. "May I?" he asked. The ballroom stilled again as I rose, slipping my hand into his. Whispers spread like fire. The CEO is dancing with her. He led me to the center of the floor with a grace that made it feel like the moment was choreographed. As we moved to the music, the weight of humiliation lifted from me piece by piece. But across the room, Victoria simmered. Her face twisted as she tried to laugh it off, but the cracks in her perfect mask were showing. Imagine, an old dress on the dance floor with the CEO, she muttered to those around her. Jonathan caught her words. He leaned closer to me, his voice low but deliberate. You know, Claire, elegance has nothing to do with sequence. True elegance is courage. And right now, you're the most elegant person in this room. The compliment wasn't just for me. It was for everyone to hear. A ripple of applause broke out, unexpected and genuine. Victoria's jaw dropped. Her laughter from earlier now echoed back at her, mocking her. And the more she tried to mask her embarrassment, the more invisible she became in the glow of that dance. The woman she ridiculed for an old dress was now the one everyone admired. If you were in my shoes, mocked one moment, admired the next, would you turn to your critic and forgive them on the spot, or let them stew in the humiliation they created for themselves? Comment below. I want to hear how you'd handle it. The dance ended, and Jonathan guided me back to our table with a polite bow. The room buzzed with admiration, but Victoria wasn't finished. She cornered me near the refreshment table, her sequins glittering like shattered glass under the lights. Her voice was sharp, desperate. Don't think this means anything. You'll always be ordinary. You just got lucky he noticed you tonight. Before I could answer, Jonathan appeared at my side, his expression unreadable, but his presence heavy. He had clearly overheard. He looked Victoria up and down, then said in a voice that carried across the nearest tables, "Do you know what I notice first about people? It's not their dress, it's not their shoes, it's not their jewelry. It's how they treat others when they think no one important is watching." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Victoria froze, her face draining of color. Jonathan continued, his voice calm but final. And tonight, the entire room saw the difference between cruelty and grace, between arrogance and elegance. I know which one belongs at my side. The applause that broke out wasn't just for me. It was for the truth spoken aloud. Victoria turned on her heel and left the ballroom, her humiliation complete. I stood taller that night not because of the dress I wore, but because of the dignity no one could take from me. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Laughed along, fired back, or waited until the truth revealed itself? Share your answer in the comments. I can't wait to hear your thoughts.